Okay, welcome to the very first Airport Advisory Committee. I wanted to let everyone know that you're gonna have to hit the little button on the front when you speak so that you can be picked up on the recording as we record these and eventually put them out over Zoom so the public can come on. At starting the next meeting, they'll be available on Zoom. Right now, they're just being recorded and put up on our YouTube channel. I'm Rebecca Deming, I'm the Community Development Director. I will have my staff member here introduce himself in a second. My department we'll always have a staff member here. We'll staff this, and then we'll have someone from the clerk who helps us record and run these meetings as needed. So if I'm not here, someone else will be, but it'll be usually me that you probably email if there's something you need or any questions you have, and I'll make sure that someone from my department is here to help you through these meetings, but really these are your meetings. So as we get into later in this items, we'll discuss how these meetings will operate. We'll even discuss if this is the right time for you guys and how you want to operate these meetings when we get to item number 6. But it really is your meeting. So we're more here to support you. So go ahead, Jason, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jason Wyke, Senior Planner here at the city. I've been participating in START meetings for about a year when Denise Lathrop, our previous Community Development Director, retired. And now I am an alternate rep. But, yeah.
Okay. And so when the rest of you introduce yourself, if you guys would like to go ahead and answer the questions we put in the agenda so that we get to kind of know you, why you're here, and what you want to achieve out of this committee.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. So I'm Jeff Bogan. So it's really nice to meet everybody. These are challenging times for the folks that live around the airport. My background is I was the operation manager for the Federal Aviation Administration for the entire Western United States. So covered all the technical aspects, landing systems, navigation, radar, automation systems, and all the TRACONs, all the ARTCs from Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, down to California, covered all the major airports, LAX, so I had a team of engineers, and have been engaged in most aspects of airport construction, particularly the technical aspects, the engineering aspects. We did a lot of work on many of the projects in SAMP, and we're engaged in doing thousands of evaluations on terms of safety and impacts to air navigation. I happen to live in Des Moines, and I was challenged to speak out publicly on any of the issues, particularly the congestion, the pollution issues, the noise issues, all the things that you might encounter when you're on final approach, which we are. And so when you have 45 planes coming down when they're really hitting it, there are many challenges to address all of the issues in terms of pollution, noise pollution, all the regulations engaged in why things are so challenging to make any changes that are of substance, regulations around ultrafine particles, which there aren't any right now, and that's a really big challenge. That's a big challenge. These rules were made in the 70s, some of them in the 70s and 80s, with not a lot of science. So I really enjoy working on those issues. Nobody can do this alone. There is a collaborative effort that is between the port and the airport and the FAA that I hope to be able to participate to see if we can't gain a little traction in those teams and the airlines paying a little more attention to late night operations, the airflow issues, approach angles and departure angles that might be talked about again. There's a lot of really interesting issues to look at. I'm sure that, I think, Jason, you've been engaged in this for many years, apparently. But not really? Yeah. So I don't know if any of, I don't know the background, but I've been in aviation and aviation research for like 25 years. So I was with the FAA for 26 years. Really hope to work with the community to see what we can do to really highlight some of the issues around the impacts to the folks You know, there may be 10,000 folks here, you got 50 million plus passengers a year, and it's going up 1% a year, you got 430,000 operations. You know, we're a small group of about a few thousand people, you got millions of people. How do you make a change? How can you affect some sort of change and raise the awareness? So that's what I'm here to do, to help that process in any way I can. This team is one of the ways to do that. So I'm looking forward to it, working with everybody here.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Todd Downing. I applied for this because I was born and raised under the flight path, and I've kind of seen the growth of it over the course of my life. And I currently live under the flight path. And I own a business that's under the flight path. And I'm just very curious to see how willing the port is to work with the communities that are affected by the externalities and kind of address some of the issues that we bring up. So largely I want to achieve some sort of dialogue, and I hope that they're willing to listen to some of our concerns, because it's kind of grown unabated, and I feel like there's really no brakes to the system. It's all kind of gas as the area grows. So that's kind of my concern.
Joe Dusenberry. I was recently retired from the city. Well, I guess it's been 5 or 6 years. But I worked for the city for 25 years. I moved up here in 1994 and retired, I think, in 2019, 2020. I had some time, and I wanted to stay involved with some of the issues, so I applied for and got a position on the start, got appointed to the start. My motivation really was, I got here right when the third runway fight was really starting to boil over, and I thought that there were just some mistakes made in how we went about that, and it really crippled our community for many years. And echoes of that still, bouncing back and forth. I found out. The other thing is, I just wanted to find out more about the airport, how it works, what the constraints are, what are some of the benefits. I found out that START, after a year being on there, is I assumed that it was some kind of a decision-making body. It really isn't. START is really just an information. It's a place where we can go and get information about what's going on at the port. There's no realistic decisions being made there. In fact, I don't, and then again, I want to, where can we start talking to people who will address our concerns? And my concerns are basically, for instance, we spent a lot of time talking about the legislative priorities in Olympia. Some of those basically have nothing to do, sustainable aviation fuel has nothing to do with the quality of life here immediately in Des Moines, maybe for our grandchildren, but there's no point in us getting too excited about that. The search for another airport, which we're basically paying for with our tax dollars, that's not going to benefit us. It's not going to reduce the use of Sea-Tac Airport. So who do we talk to? It's not START. It's got to be. There has to be a different approach here somehow. So, that's the other thing that is. I found out is that whether it's intentional or it's just the way it is, the port is able to really deflect or redirect a lot of our concerns by saying, we can't do anything about that. That's the FAA. Okay, hey, we're going to go talk to somebody in Olympia about that. To me, the Port of Seattle is a county-wide district, and the citizens of King County pay taxes to the Port of Seattle. This is a district problem. This is a King County problem, and I think we need to somehow shift the focus from trying to get money out of the FAA or trying to get Olympia to pay for this or pay for that. Take a look at the tax dollars that are generated by the taxpayers here in King County and use those resources to mitigate the impacts to the airport communities. This is, I think the difficulty, is talking to our citizens in King County and saying, hey, this is really, when you get right down to it, for the size and location, this is an amazing facility. It generates tons of money. People come here from all over the country. Geographically, we're located in a position that can pretty much nonstop access a quarter of the northern hemisphere. This is an amazing facility, but it benefits everybody in King County to have this facility, but it disproportionately impacts the airport communities, and we need to talk about how we can compensate the airport communities with, and the other thing that's really, I think, super important is we have to get across the idea that, look, this whole thing is propped up by our property taxes, and now you're gonna go out with Sam and borrow how many more billions of dollars? So any place where property values are being held back or even deteriorating because of the impacts, we should be mitigating that. That's not gonna do anybody any good. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts about why not necessarily why I got started with START, but where I am now.
Hi, my name is Steve Reagan. I've lived here in Des Moines for just about 11 years now. Before that, I lived up in the Gregory Heights neighborhood of Burien for 16 years, so I've been in this area for a long time. My wife grew up here. For a long time now, I've served on nonprofit boards for different organizations. I was looking for a different way to be able to serve, and that's when I saw this become available and wanted to be a part of it. I've got a background in analytics that I think could help out. I understand that the airport likes to throw lots of data at us from our chat not too long ago, so I'm pretty good at, that's what I do professionally is go through a lot of data. So I thought I could bring some of that kind of analytical expertise to the group. What else? I grew up near the Atlanta airport, so I've lived most of my life around one kind of airport or the other, and never known how things actually work, how things get done, how the airport, the port itself works with the surrounding communities. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience for me as well. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
I'm Barton DeLacy. I'm a newcomer to the community. I've been here only 5 years, but my wife's family moved. Her grandfather moved a house to Woodmont, where we live, in I think 1945. So I've been coming up here for 45 years. Originally from Portland, raised my family there, but then was in Chicago for 12 and a half years. And I'm a valuer or commercial real estate appraiser. But I have a master's in urban planning. I've served on planning commissions. And interestingly, I've had a lot of experience in working with ports and the valuation of the real estate around the port, even unto I was, when my indoctrination to Chicago was sitting on a large group that was trying to value Midway Airport when they were attempting to privatize it. So it was a great education. And I mean, we had a meeting in New York with 30 people, and they were all, $1,000 an hour lawyers and experts. And so I will take a back seat to Jeff regarding operations on the airport. But the real estate is something else. And to Joe's point about finding some way to get compensation, we have to focus, again, not on the FAA, but on the port, which is an authority, which is supported by tax dollars, and it's all about real estate. And so I'm hoping to lend some, I've worked nationally. I also live in the flight path. I mean, this wonderful view, and I've lived next to railroads and the L in Chicago, but at night it's every 45 seconds, and if we're any closer, we'd have to stop conversation if we're outside. But it's still it's disruptive, you know, and you have the windows open at night in the winter, summer, and, you know, okay. But anyway, I am hoping that we can find some levers. Also, as I've gotten to know the city of Des Moines and you know, our new city manager, and the opportunities that are here in the city with real estate owned and with 509 is a, you know, is good, that the Marine View Drive, as I understand, is going to kind of go back to the city once they open up. So we have some opportunities to kind of, I think, be creative and tap into community talent. And like I say, I work for Cushman & Wakefield. It's an international real estate firm. I've been there 13 of my last 20 years. There's some, I work in downtown Seattle, so I've you know, access, I think, to some of the talent down there that could maybe help us out here, whether it's the Runstad School at University of Washington or, you know, the development community, which I'm somewhat in touch with. So I'm looking forward to this and working with you all.
Thank you. Well, now that you guys know each other, I'm hoping to turn this meeting over to you. So I'm hoping to look for nominations for a chair and a vice chair. The chair will run these meetings and go through the agenda and give everyone a chance to speak. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more of that when we get to policies and procedures, but between you guys, now that
I nominate Joe for chairman. I think he has the experience and could kick us off.
Thank you. I'm more than willing.
you want to unmute yourself.
More than willing to do it, but I'm also more than willing to share. I know Jeff has a lot of expertise, so.
Well, I would nominate Jeff for vice.
There's our vice, yeah, right? There's the vice chair right there.
That would be fine, but, Joe, I do think there's a lot of leverage having you been on START, understanding some of the past history, bringing that together so that we focus on the right things where we can make a difference, and I'm certainly willing to help out wherever we need to. I think maybe give us, go ahead and give it a start, and let's see where it goes.
So we have a nomination. Do we have a second? Okay. Want to take a vote?
Are you voting on one or both of them?
Just do one first. So let's vote on Joe for chair. Okay. And so do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Nominate Jeff.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. You want to take a vote?
All right.
Okay. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joe for the rest of the agenda if you'd like. If not, I can continue for this one and we can turn it over for the next meeting.
Why don't you continue?
Okay.
Sort of
No
manage the
problem.
agenda?
Not a problem. So our next one is kind of a start introduction. I provided a website on here so that you had the website to start so that you can look at it whether you did it before or now. We have a little PowerPoint presentation that Jason's gonna kind of go over.
All right, introduction to START. Just a little background for everybody that's here and listening as well. START stands for SEA, Sea-Tac's acronym, I guess, Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable. So per the Port of Seattle, START provides the port with a dedicated forum intended to enhance cooperation and tackle airport-related issues of most relevance to Seattle's or Sea-Tac's neighboring cities. START brings together all the relevant parties with a common purpose to share information, collaborate, and achieve results. And I think it's true. I think it's useful in sharing information as well as collaborating, and I think some results are achieved, at least, Joe. There's this link there on your agenda. That'll take you to the START page. It has some good stuff, including operating procedures and as well as past meeting materials. Moving on to community members. Which you'll be voting for, or voting or
Recommending.
recommending for city appointing. Joe is currently a community member with START. In addition to the one City of Des Moines non-elected employee and her alternates. So the City of Des Moines non-elected employee is officially Catherine, our city manager. Rebecca is an alternate. I'm an alternate. I'm also part of the technical review committee for the working group. There's a different membership for that. So in addition to the city members, 2 Des Moines START members shall be community members. They must reside, own a business or property, or be employed within the city. But they cannot serve as an elected official. Members will be appointed for a 2-year term. All members and alternates who serve on START will serve as at the pleasure of their appointing bodies. There's some more conditions up there. Additional members in START include 2 airline reps, Alaska and Delta, at least typically, 1 air cargo rep, and the airport managing director or their alternate, and a Port of Seattle rep. There are also, within the START meetings, often FAA participants. There's actually facilitators of the meetings or their name is Uncommon Bridges. And there are also various presentations and presenters that attend those meetings. And some more about meetings, which is what START is all about. There's the START Steering Committee, which provides support, guidance, and strategic direction for START. And that happens at least once a year. I don't know if it's just once or more often, but I've attended one in-person meeting there at the airport. Community members do not attend steering committee meetings, but city reps do. Then there are START regular meetings. These are the big ones. There are 6 a year that are typically scheduled on the 4th Wednesday of the month. Community members are encouraged to attend. There'll be discussions about various topics, presentations, summary of working group meetings. Sometimes you'll find elected officials present, state elected officials, etc. And then moving on to the working groups. These are a subset of meetings. So the policy working group typically meets every other month. These are optional for community members. This is a forum to discuss policies and coming up with shared priorities. As Joe mentioned, Day in Olympia happened. I wasn't involved in that. I don't know if Anthony Hempstead still represents the city in any way, but yeah, he's often participating on those. There's the Aviation Noise Working Group, which I attend. There's actually one tonight starting at 5. These are optional, again, for community members. So my role is basically to attend these meetings. I share the info to my city manager, Rebecca. I also try to get questions answered. If you have any questions, I'll try to get the answer for you. And as another subcommittee within that working group is the technical review committee. And that has different members and liaisons. It's kind of a little confusing, but tonight the Aviation Noise Working Group is meeting, and on the agenda includes the sound installation program and the new sound contour map. So I'll be learning more about that tonight. And, yeah, if you have any
Yeah.
questions.
So I think we can also maybe hear from Joe about the meeting, since he's been attending, and, you know, he would be a good example if you'd like to talk about it, of what you guys would be, the other person would be doing. You know, any person attending, providing updates is helpful to staff. That way we hear, if a staff member wasn't able to attend, then we can hear what, you know, what you took from it. But Joe, if you'd like to provide any additional information.
I think, to be, in my opinion, be really effective, I think we really need to focus on a few things. You know, one of them, the things that would help us the most is that the sound package repair program, which at this point is kind of stalled out. Keeping pressure on the port for the late night noise thing is and you're right, they've been sort of effective about getting that, some voluntary, voluntary.
At least 2 to 5 in the morning.
Yeah, so that, some things are pretty effective. But again, to make it, to really have some kind of an impact, like, for instance, we've got the steering committee, and where community members don't attend. So to start with, there's sort of a filter that any issues to be talked about go through this other filter first before the community members get there. So in some ways, that seems like they're actually steering the conversation, you know, so, but I don't know if there's any other.
Does that mean that if Catherine's a member, does she go to a steering committee then?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right.
So for us to get something on the agenda, we have to go to Jason,
Okay.
somebody, and they have to go to the steering committee and get it on. And I don't know what the process is if that's, you know, hey, great idea, we'll put it on the agenda, or it's put it in a queue. I don't know how they actually come up with the agenda items. So, the policy working group, I've been attending both of those meetings. What you'll find out is that it really comes down to 3 or 4 people that will comment and that are really super interested in it, and the rest of us are probably just listen, you know. So, yeah. The noise working group obviously is where we get the most input from the community. Policy working group is, like I said, that's almost irrelevant for us for most of the time.
I think I agree. I think it's very difficult to challenge some of the, like the 65 DNL. Those rules, which have been in place for a very long time, based not on science, but again on people's perception of noise, is no longer appropriate, not used in Europe anymore. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, and the FAA has not pursued vigorously a new policy. There's some research being done. Clearly, there's related illness around noise that is documented now. But fighting that in this group, the 65 number, and trying to get it down to something like 45, which is what they use in the EU, is very difficult for this team to work on. So that's probably not one of the areas we would focus on. The areas where we're looking at insulating people's homes, making sure that they take a measurement inside people's homes to make sure that it's actually reducing it by 20 dB or more, to ensure that it doesn't go over standards that have been agreed on. Those are things where we can perhaps ensure that that process is happening and moving along. Yeah.
And the meetings are at 5 p.m. if that helps.
Jason mentioned the technical review committee, and that's for the Part 150 study. And for the initial map I saw, and I think they call it the area of impact, or there's a new line
Yeah.
they're proposing, but it looked to me like, again, the even within the airport communities, I feel that sometimes the impacts are not spread out evenly. They're not, and for instance, if the map they've shown us before is the map that actually gets adopted, the largest, and I'm assuming that that the area is getting larger because this plan goes out to 2032, and they're just saying, okay, by 2032, we're gonna have this much more traffic and this much more noise.
Yeah, they want to increase, even in nighttime operations, a few more nighttime operations formally.
Yeah.
One can only wonder how much
Yeah.
that's going to be adhered to. So it's a time-weighted average of Part 150.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice that on those profiles, it does extend a little further out. The contours have extended. It's not very far out, but it's a little far out, and they are particular facilities, churches and schools that they've had to include to accommodate that. But again, the actual monitoring itself, some of the technical information about where they're monitoring, it's all modeled. This is a model. This is not an actual representation of the noise itself, where we probably don't have enough sensors in the area to do it yet. It should be, one thing this committee could do is make a recommendation to provide more sensors in those impacted areas to actually align the model with what really is coming out today to ensure that that's being compliant. There are folks in the FAA that are supposed to be doing things like that, and there's some pretty good monitoring tools, but it's all about additional monies for the equipment itself. It's pretty sophisticated microphone assembly. It's all been calibrated into, so it has to be exactly right. But we need empirical data, science-based data, actual data, rather than using their noise modeling based on the type of aircraft it is, the elevations they're traveling at. But we can make a difference there to ensure that that they adhere to that model. That model doesn't go up by more than 1.5 dB, which is the limit. So again, every one of the SAMP issues, no impact. No impact. Well, I can never say much about that before, but clearly there is an impact. And when you run a plane every 45 seconds and you add a few more at night, that's a pretty big impact to the folks that live there. So the noise issue, again, on Part 150 is really hard to work at the national issue, national level, to change the thresholds nationally, but we can make sure that they adhere to what they say they're going to do as you roll towards 2030.
I think when they rolled out that new map, that's how they characterized it. They said, well, there's not much of a change, but the largest change was in the southwest corner.
Yep.
And that's us.
Yep.
And I believe that change is because they just are gonna be using the third runway more as traffic builds up. You know, the other day when I came in, we were all landing on the third runway and taking off on the first, so I think that's.
It used to be that, the 34 right was used less often, and so they are changing. They're adding concourses, so they're actually adding capacity, building in capacity to the airport. At this point, they're not slowing down. Nothing's going to slow them down, except if we get some health lawsuits against them, or perhaps again, tragically, an accident or something that might slow things down. As it did in Newark, where people took another look at the density of traffic. But again, there hasn't been a fatality, and it's incredibly safe. Obviously, the FAA is incredibly safe. You have 1 billion people a year flying, and you maybe have an accident once every 5 years. I mean, that's 1 in 10 million. So the risk level is extremely low, and yet the public perception of risk is very, very high. So there's a ton of money coming in to address those things. But we're not going to be able to change the basic rules. But what we can do is make sure it's enforced. And there certainly are going to add more flights. And so how slowing those things down when you're having these multi-billion-dollar projects is an extremely difficult thing to do. That's probably not realistic for this team to take on in terms of their working towards increased capacity and reduced delays.
Martin?
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with the futility of reducing noise or flights. I don't think that's gonna happen. What I am wondering about, if we couldn't, I know you've talked about all the statistics that the port has, and maybe we have to generate a few of our own. And in particular, I'd be interested in developing a metric that would demonstrate the you know, and we could use, it could be in terms of flight or noise or something, but demonstrate the disproportionate impact which the city of Des Moines experiences versus everyone else. And you've got a countywide, and I can imagine doing an interesting, we have enough small communities incorporated that we could get fairly discrete numbers, I would think, regarding flight that would show that you know, North County is just, it's not a big deal. We all pay the same in taxes, and I think if we could develop a metric, that's something we could take, not to the FAA, but to the port, and start talking about distribution of money, and since you can't mitigate the impacts of the noise and the flights, you can't really do anything about that. There's a modest impact positively, possibly by pilots living here, but do they want to live here with all that noise? Maybe they'd rather live, you know, go out to Maple Valley or someplace, and you could, you know, you could show, interestingly, commuting times that you know, you wouldn't have to live here if you worked at the airport, and at the same time we could again sort of develop a metric, and if we looked at sort of the, I won't say there's discretionary money, but there is, you know, something there at the port in terms of, you know, cost benefit, and if we could start to demonstrate the cost to the community of Des Moines, and that's a number, if we did develop it, that's something we can give to our legislators, because it's easy, it's something we could have a nice map, and I think it's something that with, we could get creative, how do we survey, how do we come up with a metric, and that's where I think, interestingly, we could potentially work with anyone from Highline up to the Runstad School at Washington. This would be a very interesting project for them to undertake. And there's funding available sometimes for this type of study that we could get from outside groups. My counselors of real estate, I'm on a foundation there that we're always looking to, for this kind of a project. It'd be groundbreaking. We'd have to work with a professor there or something. But I think that would be an interesting, I think given that most of us are kind of lay people, maybe not Jeff, but the rest of us are in terms of dealing with this, but we understand the impacts, and we just have to come up with a metric, a number to measure that better. And there's a lot of real estate data that we could also play with, show the relative impacts. You know, why might home values in Des Moines be marginally lower if you're, you know, not the waterside, but any place else in the city, and what is that kind of an impact? And there are, again, we could come up with some numbers to show that, and maybe tie it to increases in flights and such. So that's, I think, where we could do the most good.
The data is there, actually. Most of the noise data has been either both modeled and empirically measured. They're doing, you know, there's an enormous database of flights, and you can sort and search on them in any area.
So we just, right, and so we just start laying that over, using GIS, just lay that over the apartment rents, and we can start attributing marginally lower values, it's a relative number, to that, and those are, I think that'd be kind of fun.
You get a tax break or something.
Well, that's right,
What
yeah.
I'm talking about is,
Yes.
is really to make a real difference. Tax breaks to folks that are impacted.
That'd get 'em.
And so that would make, that could be potentially something to hold those house values up, realizing that they're not gonna get assessed the same number. That seems like a fair thing to start opening a discussion with some legislative folks and help, right?
Yes. Another tact would be to translate that into some, you know, as the city struggles to pay for services, and it has some assets but not others, a good way to help the city have more liquid assets that would promote development here would be, you know, finding a way to fund, you know, allow the city to acquire property that could be then sold or leveraged to benefit the city as a whole. So there, but I hadn't thought about a property tax. That's a great idea. Yeah.
As,
I'm sorry, just one quick thing, just on that disproportionate impact theme, need a clarification. I attended an FAA presentation, and they said that, that the airport operates north flow, south flow. And south flow is about 75% of the time.
Yeah, prevailing winds, you know, are
Yeah.
coming from the,
So,
south and southwest, and so you always wanna land into the wind.
and when we talk about technology helping us out, and there are things, technology is helping out with the noise, but again, if we have 75%, if it's 75% south flow, to me, that means we get 75% of the takeoffs. And
Yeah.
the technology out there, and tell me if I'm correct in repeating this to people, but the technology out there that is helping the airlines is largely on the landings.
There is pilot discretion. When you are, if you're a pilot, you have discretion how quickly you can take off. There are limitations about limitations on the plane and the load on the plane, but they can take off rather quickly and get up quickly. And they also can land at a higher elevation. Their glide slope can be changed. It has been done around the country, and it's been done in Europe a few places. Pilots don't like it. They like to be stable when they come down for a landing. They like to be 5, 6 miles out. They want the gears down. That brings up a bunch of turbulence and noise. So all of that adds to it, and changing the glide slope, coming down a little bit higher for those folks. If you can get another 1,000 feet, you can reduce it by almost like 4 dB. 10 dB is half the volume that you perceive. So if you can get down below that number, if you get it down by half, that'd be incredible. But you have to be up several thousand feet. That's not going to happen. But you could come in at a higher glide slope. That's been talked about a lot. It's a technical issue. This team may not be the right place to work on that. It's been pretty much put to sleep here.
But are we correct, would we be correct in saying, hey, technology's there, but again, if this split 75-25, the technology is mostly helping out on the landing side?
So the landing's always 3 degrees.
Yeah.
You're always 3 degrees. You're always coming down 3 degrees. It's always straight in, and it's always straight in for about 5 miles on final. So that's the 3 degrees can go up to 4, but changing it to have them come in sooner is something that pilots really will push back extremely hard on. You probably won't win that battle. The risk management around that would probably not something you can win, but you can get them to take off a little more quickly, and so that gets folks up and out more quickly, and they can align the routes a little bit. Jason Poole, I believe, is a member of this team. I've worked with him for years on flight procedures, and so those are things that can be talked about. But I'm not sure that this team is the right place to work all those issues. But the technology is allowing us to be more precise. It's actually hurting us. In fact, the new technology is making it impossible to increase capacity, fly planes closer together, supposedly, and still retain safety. Retain the safety margins. So new technology is not helping us. It's actually hurting us.
Yeah.
And for impacted communities.
Another fact check. What I tell people when I talk to them is that, and this is about the FAA, I say, look, we have to somehow get the port to, this discussion to pivot away from, oh, the FAA is going to take care of this, because regardless of who's in control of Congress, regardless of who's in the White House, for the next decade, we are probably looking at lower funding all across the federal spectrum. So is it realistic to just assume that all we have to do is turn on the FAA spigot and money is going to flow into this community?
No,
and I'm
money's
saying
not
no.
And money is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. You know, the FAA is a regulatory agency. I mean, they do a lot of maintenance. They take care of stuff, but they're basically run by a lot of rules. I mean, the FARs are, you know, there's thousands and thousands of rules, and that's what the FAA does best: interpret the rules. It's very slow. It's methodical. It's done slowly so that mistakes aren't made. I can regale everybody with lots of FAA interesting stories as we go through this, and we can talk about the third runway and all the interesting issues around that. But I don't think that money. You know, there's about $10 billion coming into the FAA that was never there before. The FAA has both really old equipment, legacy equipment. Everybody picks on that equipment, like the computers are really old. Well, that's not really true. Actually, they have a lot of systems. They're all Unix-based, and you don't want the best computer, the brand new thing, or COTS off-the-shelf stuff. You want solid stuff that's been around that works. And so there's like an enormous public misconception that buying all new stuff is going to fix all these problems. And in fact, that's probably not going to be true. It may cause the controllers to be a little more happy that the fact that the screens don't go blank as often. But even then, the system's quite safe. But money's not going to fix this problem. Not coming into the FAA. No, the port. The port is the one that is going to make determinations about how much, what the capacity needs to be. The runway capacity right now, we're not bumping up against the top of the runway capacity. They can run about 90 right now operations per hour. They run, you know, during perfect fair weather. They're at like 80, so they could go up by 10, and that's what they plan on doing, and not incur any more than like 15-minute delays. So that's what they're moving towards. And the technology is only going to allow that to happen more rapidly. So it's a hard path to dump money in and expect the FAA to do anything, because they're just following the rules. They just simply follow the rules and analyze risk, approve projects, and it's a very slow. Everything that's being done in the FAA is very slow. So all the processes you see are very slow.
So I'm going to try and bring us back into the agenda. Are there any questions about START itself? And then we could talk about strategies for the airport later.
Did we finish the presentation?
We did.
Okay.
So I wanted to see if there was any questions before we move to the next, and asked for a nomination for a START representative. The nomination will then go to council. So even though you guys will vote for the nomination, it will go to council for a formal selection.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
It's not terribly time-consuming.
Yeah,
The meetings are very structured.
not too bad, yeah.
And
Yeah.
is this in addition to
Yes,
Joe?
it's in addition to two, because we have two community members. So we need a second community member. So we've got a self-nomination of Barton, and we got a second. So do we have everyone want to vote? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the SAMP. I provided a website. I'm not going to go into too much with the time we have. I wanted to kind of give an update on the timing of and where the SAMP was at on their environmental review. So hopefully you had a chance to look at the website and understand that the SAMP is basically a project that they're doing. And they've released an environmental document that we have responded to. I don't know if you guys have stayed on top of that and seen the city's response. We are also part of a 4-city ILA where we responded as a group to that environmental document. And the environmental document that came out was under NEPA. And so it was under the federal environmental regulations versus the state environmental regulations. And so we recently got, or it's been almost a month now, an update on the timing of all of those, like response to our comments and response to everyone's comments. And so we're being told as of right now, they're expecting to publish a decision on that no later than October 31st. And then once the FAA issues that decision, then the port expects to publish their draft SEPA EIS in Q1 of next year. So that's the timing we're seeing right now.
So just from, I think Steve Edmiston, who's an attorney in the Woodmont area, and I presented a critique of SAMP, which I read, and then it sounded a lot like, I think the city of Burien had one as well. The comments were similar. Mm-hmm. And the essence is that and I'm not sure which body does it, but we didn't get an environmental impact statement, which I normally abhor, but would be a vehicle to better examine some of the health issues that Jeff has brought up. But that what they got was kind of a review that said, oh, there's nothing to see here, it's fine, and
Move along.
move along, move along. And so I'm wondering how, or to what extent, and maybe the city was in favor of an EIS, or what happened with that?
So, yeah, so there is an EIS expected under the state, under SEPA.
Okay.
They've already said that there is a determination of significance, and then an EIS will be issued
Okay,
under SEPA, and they're saying the expected timeline is Q1 of next year.
Okay.
They did not issue an EIS under NEPA. Most cities feel that it probably should have been an EIS.
Okay.
But that is not what they issued. A lot of our comments and a lot of cities suggested that it
so
possibly
that's off the
should have been.
table now?
We're waiting to see their response to comments.
Okay,
And where it goes from there is gonna be up to both this committee's recommendation to council and what council wants to do from there. But again, we don't know their response until we find out their response when it comes out by, what they're saying is October 31st.
okay.
So we don't know if they're gonna come back and do more environmental, or if they're just going to say, here's your response to our comments, we felt we've completed all of the NEPA requirements. But again, SEPA has said it will be a full EIS. So under the state, which does have stricter rules than NEPA, it is supposed to be an EIS. And they have said over and over again that it will be an EIS, not just an EA, an environmental assessment. It will be a full EIS. Again, we have a 4-city ILA. We may or may not be looking at amending it, including whether we need to add legal services. So if there is a need to discuss legal services as it relates to the environmental or not, that there could be an amendment until we know what's going on or what direction council wants to go. Those are stuff that we'll bring back here for a recommendation to council. Also with the SEPA that it comes out, if there's any change that we want to do in the ILA, it doesn't really require it if we want a new consultant or anything like that, but if we want to make changes or updates, again, the timing has changed, so depending on if we need to extend the ILA, we may need to update it anyway, so we most likely bring it through you guys to make a recommendation to council on that ILA. I don't have it here. I just wanted to give you guys an update of where we were at. We would probably be looking at it next month, if anything. And then the next item is meeting policies and procedures. I just kind of wanted to check with you to see time of this meeting, if this works, and we can move some of it. And a lot of you, I have a thing of what you guys were available. Most of you didn't put 4 o'clock and put before 4 o'clock, but this was what time the room was available. But if we moved it online and then came in person at 4 when we needed to meet in person, we could move it, to more availability. But I just wanted to, if you want to put up, I put your guys' availability based on your survey, so you guys knew what you guys voted on, and so Monday was the most available for everybody. And so I wanted to discuss both timing, amount of time you wanted to have these meetings, if an hour seemed right, if you wanted to set them for longer, and how you guys wanted to handle these meetings. I wanted to leave that discussion to you guys since it's your meeting.
We get kicked out at 5?
We don't.
I think we may want to keep
But I
it
wanted
to
to,
an hour.
but I wanted to set an expectation of time, so if people are taking time out of their time to be here, and things like that.
Add some value, listen, to get
Absolutely.
started here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, if we got a lot of folks that are leaving or something, we can talk about virtual meetings, but let's keep it in person for a little while.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I can't do any, I was the one with the worst timing availability. I can't do anything before this because of, because of work, so.
It was fine, I get a good news, keeps me from commuting into town, and
Yeah.
And an hour probably seems reasonable.
Yeah.
If we have special stuff, we'll just get together in a different way,
Yeah.
Or stay later one time, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, having that hour, I think, helps us keep on track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
agree, and it keeps
I agree.
me talking.
Stay on the agenda, yes, yes.
Okay.
You have a lot to say. It's very.
Yeah.
Is there any other items about the meeting, if specifically that you guys would like to discuss, any specific processes or
So we're meeting how often? It's
once a month?
once a month, okay.
And well, and that's part of the discussion a little bit is this is your meeting. So if you guys don't tell me that, like if I don't have anything that I need to meet, like a specific recommendation. So for instance, like I said, if there was possibly an ILA update or the SAMP EIS came out to meet with you guys, if I don't have something specific I need to discuss with you, if you guys don't tell me you have something you need to meet on, I won't have anything for the agenda. So everything should go through the chair for you guys. I'm gonna cancel the meeting because it's your meeting. So if I don't have something and you don't have something, it's an ad hoc meeting, so there won't be a meeting. So that's part of this is if you want to meet, I'll probably ask it at the end of each item. If you have something for the next meeting you'd like to put on the agenda, we'll note it. And we'll do that kind of, this one I'm asking, what do you need in terms of documents? If there's anything you want me to gather, any presentations, any people you want me to try and get to come and present to you guys. I can, work on trying to coordinate that for future meetings. It might not be the next meeting, it might be 2 meetings. Those are the kinds of things I want you guys to think about and reach out. All of those things are stuff that we're here to help you make sure that you can get the most information you need to make this work for you. But what topics you want to discuss, what topics you want to have on the agenda, it's your committee.
What is the council's expectations as far as outputs from this meeting? What are they wanting to hear from us? How often are they wanting to hear from us?
I don't know that there was a set amount of time. I can check if the other committees, if they report out on a set number of time. I assume at least once a year would be a good idea to report out if there's not a specific item. Like I said, when the SEPA for the SAMP comes out, having a recommendation for a response letter, those are the kinds of things when you'll come and say, hey, here's our recommended response.
And when
Or-
are the dates? That's not until October, you said?
Well, the response to our comment will be on October, but the new SEPA wouldn't be till the new year.
Well, just backing up from there, it would seem that would be a good, when they got
Right.
those comments, it would be good to.
To review them as a
review them
group, yes.
As a group. I was gonna ask, Jason, relative to the city, and we can go offline on this, it'd be interesting to have sort of an inventory of what statistics you might have regarding housing, and even GIS, if we wanted to overlay the sound, what would you call it, the sound impact?
I don't know what the city has. I know. I use the plat viewer a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't have access to the contour model
Okay.
itself. In fact, as a private citizen, you have to pay for access to
Okay.
it. You can get it, but maybe we could get access.
That's
That would,
what I was-
yeah, so if we could get, this would be interesting, I don't know if you could do
And
this.
you can overlay GSI.
Yeah, if you could do that contour map over the housing map, and at least initially see, we could kind of see what we think, and then follow-on work, and this could be done by a subcommittee, would be to then, figure out how many units we have in there, and the population, and the average home values, and we could just use assessor data or something would be fine, and it would give us, a start, and then we could,
I think that's critically important, because what I'm hearing from out of the Part 150 study, the signal seems to be, look, folks, we've done all we can do with sound insulation and all that kind of stuff. We're just gonna lob it over to you, and it's all gonna be about zoning and zoning and urban planning to basically, you know, they're just gonna say, hey, look, don't let anybody build inside this line. Or build, you know, the type of building in there has to be compatible with this.
Right,
noise.
right.
No new construction
So-
or,
Eighty.
and existing construction needs to be
Yeah,
mitigated.
so I think, Martin, that's critical that we understand what they're saying because or what's the impacts are
Yeah.
gonna be, because I think that's what they're saying to us.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, we can say, fine. Now, then we can start to use, if we can get the metrics, let's look at the property tax rates.
Yeah.
So here are some mitigation options, because we can't do anything about the planes overhead, but if I get my property taxes are 10% less, that's great. And then with that, I can do the same analysis for other representative communities, which would further demonstrate the disproportionate, you know.
Rebecca,
Yeah, I'll
process.
see if I can get a GIS layer for it or not. If not, I can see if we can recreate it.
May I ask, do we have any survey data from the impacted folks directly? I know that a few of them have gone to meetings and such, but have we actually had a town meeting about that? And have we really heard from the folks? I mean, I know what my neighbors say, but it'd really be nice to
Yeah.
have some sort of formal survey, a reach out in some way, whether we go out and do it ourselves, or
Yeah.
just to listen to people, so I know that I'm representing them.
Well, we have the Citizen Advisory Board, and it does have representatives from each of the 9 neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And we could start with those at least as a unit. Maybe they could, you know, give them
Yeah,
something.
but
We
Des
did-
Moines, but.
We did have a community meeting in response to the SAMP where
Yeah.
people could come out and
Yeah,
voice their
I think I went to that.
concerns.
But that wasn't probably organized either, you know, you get, yeah.
Yes, and then, that's right, and so we didn't collect the information, people asked some questions, the poor was there, right, and so.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be nice to have some sort of a formal survey, we say, this is what the folks are concerned about, this is the survey results, so we can line that up.
Yeah.
And use that also as, pillars to support the
Yeah.
kind of things that we are
I
talking
think
about.
that's one of the reasons, or one of the things I think feel strongly about is that I'm supposed to be a community representative, but in fact, I talked to about a handful of people up and down my street and in my neighborhood. And one of the reasons why I pushed for this committee was hopefully we can amplify that.
Yeah.
I mean, even if each of us just went out and talked to 5 or 6 people, but
Yeah, in
So
my
what you're
community, I'm
saying-
gonna have a meeting.
Yeah.
Bart and I,
Yeah.
we'll invite all the folks from
Yeah.
Woodmont,
Yeah.
our little
Yeah.
area.
I think-
That's 150 folks, and
Yeah.
we'll bring them in.
Yeah.
We'll collect some formal information
Yeah.
about what really concerns you.
Yes.
Tell me about that, and then we can just sort of use that.
So maybe at the next
And I
meeting, I
think-
can put survey on the agenda. We can talk
Survey
about
on the
survey
agenda, and then we
questions
could-
that you
and-
guys would like to have. And maybe even when we go out and do, like, we have a booth at the farmer's market. It's definitely something we can even ask
Yeah.
while we're out there, some of those questions.
And then you could, if we did that, then when the cab meets, it would
Send people out with the survey.
send people out, at least it'll alert them. It would be, I mean, some neighborhoods are better organized than others, but it would still be to have a vehicle
Yeah.
for those reps to
Yeah.
reach out. And that'll be the kind of stuff that whoever, I mean, our legislative leaders would love to have that kind of data.
I think as a committee, if we
Yeah.
can develop a message, and the problem with this whole thing is it's very, very complicated. It gets technical in a hurry,
Right.
but if we can develop a message that says, this is how we are being impacted, this is what we want to do about it, and if we're willing to go out and go to those community groups, go to the service clubs, and get out as individuals and spread this message, I think that's how we can be the most effective.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's just generally a lack of knowledge about what's.
That's right.
How.
A lot of people blame, the Port of Seattle, they blame the FAA
Yeah.
for allowing this to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not just one organization that's allowing it, it almost has
Oh.
it has its own energy, and has been going on, and it's practically unstoppable.
Sure.
Unless, but what we can do is mitigate some of the pieces of it where we can make a difference,
Yeah.
and that might be messages to the legislature, and also talking a little bit about mitigations for folks.
What else would you like to see on the agenda, next agenda?
Quick process question.
Yes.
If we do have something that we feel should come out of, if we have an opinion or an observation or something that comes out of this committee, how do we communicate that to the council? Do they want to see it in a letter? Do they want somebody to come and speak to them? How do we want to communicate?
She left.
Well, anyway, that maybe.
Let me find out.
Yeah.
I'll pass the message along, like the idea of a survey. I'll definitely take that to the city manager that came out of here, and see how you guys want to. I mean, once you develop the survey, I can ask what the best way, if it's just you guys passing it on or passing it through.
Mr. Harris?
How he wants to. Let's keep it in here since he's as a.
I mean, if you wanna talk afterwards, but I'm not part of it.
Yeah, yeah, as I say, because the community is, the audience is not part of this committee, but I will find out what the best way for I mean, I'm sure of whether it's coming to the council or written recommendation, we will make sure that we pass the message along in one way or another to the council. It could be through, talk to the city manager through city manager's report that a specific recommendation came out of here. We'll find a way to get those recommendations.
The second thing is,
out.
can you put together a little email group and send it out to us?
Who's that? Just
Yes.
Roster?
Yeah,
With our emails?
Yes, absolutely.
and then I can put together
Yeah.
an email group and then send it out to everybody and get back the suggestions for the
Yeah.
agenda.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything that you guys can think of right now that you would like us to start researching, or anything that you could think of now? If not, you're welcome to get it to us later. I just had it on the agenda, so I wanted to put it out there.
I wouldn't mind knowing what the city's concerned, I'm sure, on SAMP and all the related issues around that.
Okay,
What
so
their concerns,
a
traffic.
bigger
I don't know,
SAMP.
What are the big things that the city is concerned about that perhaps we can help address or add to our understanding of what some of the challenges are?
Okay.
At least so we don't have to ask the same questions
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah, we can maybe present some of our response and,
Some
Yeah.
serious ones. I'm just not keyed into
Is there some kind of historical record of why the last version of this committee folded? Like, is there like a written history? Because I've heard why, but I don't know if there's like a formalized, so that we don't, again, retread some of this stuff, the issues that have already been gone over. Like, I understand,
I would like to find out, and I think it's a fairly simple calculation, how much property taxes does the port collect in the city of Des Moines?
Very good question. Yeah.
So that when we say, hey, I pay my taxes, I want to be able to say exactly how much.
much, yeah.
Well, that is kind of a complicated calculation, because, it's a percentage of a percentage of a percentage, and what is that in absolute numbers, and then what does that translate to, per $1,000 of assessed value on your house? Is that something that you have any access to?
I can check with our finance department.
Okay.
I might be able to just at least get the percentage or the per $1,000.
Yeah.
And then get a general, what our assessed value in the city is, so it might be able to get a generalized
I tried to do it
number.
one time to figure out, for undeveloped lots on Marine View Drive, could they be assessed at, what are they assessed at, and how much difference does that make to the city? And I think it's like, the city gets something like $80 maybe of $1 million assessed value. It filters down, it's not a big
So I
number.
might be able to get
Yeah.
like that number and then say our total assessed value in the entire city is this amount, so we might be able to get a
But you get a very
generalized
small
number.
fraction, and that's why, trying to find ways, and a lot of the city property isn't even assessed, so that doesn't help. And then we have these shortfalls, so, this could go to mitigate that, yeah.
Anything else? If not, I'm happy to adjourn.
Okay, we'll get back in time to tune into the
Yeah.
committee meeting and hear the technical review committee or presentation. So that's it.
Yes, the
You guys
next,
have to keep-
the start is going in at 5 o'clock, so.
Oh, sorry.
They've gotta take off.
Where's that meeting, or you Zoom?
Online.
It is,
Yeah.
okay.
But like the technical review committee on
old school, so.
The impact's there for us.
Yep.
Even though it's out 5, 6 years, it's still gonna
Is this something that anybody can zoom in on? Is that, or is it?
Not,
I don't
Not
think
the
the working groups are not open to the public.
I see, okay.
yeah.
Okay,
All right.
we'll see you the second Monday at 4 PM next month here. I guess I should have checked the date.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is. Thank you.
All right, thank you.